I didn't go looking for proof. I was looking for a receipt. It was a Tuesday night, the kind that smells like laundry detergent and old coffee. He had asked me to print the year's medical expenses because the tax guy was on him, and his laptop was open on the kitchen table with the screensaver bouncing his last name around like a screensaver does when it's bored. I touched the trackpad. The screen woke up. A folder sat on the desktop with a name that didn't make sense among W cheese and PDS pumpkin. It was the kind of harmless nickname people give their pets. Except it wasn't a dog. The first photo was of a little girl sitting cross-legged on a faded picnic blanket, a smear of strawberry on her cheek like a deliberate brushstroke. 4, maybe 5 years old. The second photo was of the same girl, her lips in that serious kindergarten line, her hair clipped back with a bow the exact blue of his college t-shirt, my husband's college, the one he wears when he's relaxed on Sundays. I knew his eyes the instant I saw them copy-pasted onto the small face hazel with an indecisive ring of green, the color that never quite knows if it's brown or not. His mother's eyes. The same tilt. The third photo made my stomach go cold, the girl asleep in a car seat, her cheek pressed into a fleece blanket I recognized because I bought the same one at Target 2 winters ago, the one with the miniature foxes. The date in the corner said 2 months back. The album didn't belong to a past life. It was 2 months ago. There were videos, too, the kind that autoplay without your consent, a giggle spilling out of the speakers like it had been trapped there, my kitchen suddenly haunted by a child I'd never met. I felt the kind of calm you only feel when your body is protecting you from screaming. I closed the lid. I opened it. I did it again, as if I could reset reality with a hinge. For a ridiculous second, I tried to convince myself that he was helping a friend, that this was someone else's kid he was kindly mentoring, because we're those people, right? The ones who bake cupcakes for charity and donate to school drives and have the tidy list of things we'll do when we're ready, like get a dog, then maybe a baby, then a house with a lemon tree. Except in my kitchen there was a little girl on the screen with my husband's eyes, and my hands smelled like whatever we put in the dishwasher to make the plates look brand new. I sat down. The chair made a sound like it was also tired of being lied to. I could tell you I waited for him. I could tell you I poured myself tea, that I breathed, that I practiced sentences in my head for when he walked in smelling like the gym in traffic. That would be pretty and wrong. What I did was scroll. I opened the photo info panel like a surgeon lifting a rib. Locations, dates, thumbnails marching in neat rows like a childhood he was building somewhere else while I was here buying Kuno on sale because we were saving. A birthday party in a park with buttercream frosting that had surrendered in the sun. A first day of school sign, the chalk letters listing favorite color, blue and when I grow up, veterinarian. My throat closed around the word veterinarian because in another life I had a list like that too, mine said writer, then maybe mother, then something that scares me. When he came home, the laptop was closed and my hands were clean. I didn't say hello first. I didn't say anything. It's funny how silence can be louder than any fight you've ever had. It's like the entire house leans toward it. He put the keys down, that clink that normally means it's safe to exhale. He saw my face or the damage on it. He knew, of course he did. There are moments you both step into like a cold pool, no matter how you feel about water. He didn't deny it. He told me the truth, the kind you only tell when you realize lying will turn the floor beneath you into ocean. He said he had a fling brief, like he was describing a summer storm years ago, before the wedding. He said he didn't know about the baby at first. He said the mother reached out later, that there were tests, that the numbers didn't argue. He said the little girl was his. He said he wanted to help, that he had been helping, and then he did the most insane, tender, cruel thing a person can do. He asked me for permission to keep helping. There was a physics to the moment. All the furniture grew edges. The stove's light suddenly looked like interrogation. I realized that before the wedding is stretchy, like pizza dough, pull it a little, and you can fit right around the time you were picking invitations into it. I realized that truth can be honest and still arrive just like betrayal. I realized I can be the kind of woman who stays calm and everything inside of me is stampeding. I told him I needed air. I walked to the end of the block where the neighbor's rosemary bush grows through the fence like it's trying to escape, and I pulled a sprig, crushed it until it's all made my fingers smell like summer I didn't have. I stood there and thought about the man I married and this child I didn't. I imagined her ear pressed into a pillow at night while he half whispered to keep her asleep. I imagined the woman who had carried her. What had she been told? What had she been promised? What had she expected? Then the worst thought, the one with teeth, if he could be someone's father, why not mine too? What did I do wrong to be the wife who was asked for permission to share a man's love with a secret that had a birth certificate? We talked eventually. We did that measured, adult thing, the one where you split your heart into folders and give them names like practicalities and no boundaries because you're afraid if you say rage and grief out loud, the neighbors will call someone. We agreed he would support the child, financially and otherwise. We agreed there would be honesty, that I could know where he was and when, that nothing would be hidden again. I told him I needed time before meeting her. I wanted to be noble about it, like the kind of person who smiles and moves when their life is being rearranged. Like the arrangement is charity and they are lucky to be asked. There was influence in the word honesty. It made me complicit. It made me feel like denial would have been easier, and I hated myself for that thought. For a while, the arrangement lived like a roommate. It had a toothbrush in our bathroom and its own spot in our shared calendar. On Saturday mornings he would go for a run, and I wouldn't ask how far. He'd come back smelling like sun and sugar, a different perfume clinging to him, something warm and small that the human body makes when it's held. I had washed sheets and Scolzillo for houses we joked about and couldn't afford, and tell myself what progress looks like, compassion with a side of logistics. Who are you if not the bigger person when life asks for a donation? I tried on being generous like a coda size too big. Sometimes it warmed me. Sometimes I tripped on the sleeves. There was the time he brought home a crayon drawing. He didn't mean to. It fell out of his gym bag, paper like a fragile leaf bent in a corner. A triangle house, a figure with a big round head, child logic, and a smaller figure who was still obviously him because the child's hand had drawn the hazel ring around the eyes like a halo. I recognized the car. I recognized the dog. We don't have, apparently they do. I put the drawing on the fridge and then I took it down 2 minutes later, as if paper could indict me. I ended up sliding it under the stack of manuals that come with appliances and never get opened again. It lives there now, between microwave warnings and instructions for a blender we never use. It felt like a metaphor I didn't want. If you're waiting for the explosion, it didn't come loud. It came by mail. I was paying bills because that's my love language. My parents measured stability and whether the kitchen light worked and there was gas for the stove. A white envelope with the mortgage company's logo had the vicious look that makes you sit up straighter. Our mortgage is automatic, so this was odd. I opened it because of course I did. Inside was a property tax statement for a condo. Not ours. I thought it was junk mail. Then I saw his name and the parcel number and a due date that belonged to someone's life. I looked at the address, and the city was ours, just a different neighborhood, the kind with 2 coffee shops on the same corner because people like to argue about roast levels. If I'd been a better person, I would have asked him, "What is this?" If I'd been an angrier person, I would have photographed it and sent it with a skull emoji. Instead, I did the terrible, precise, sober thing that women do when they are left alone with uncertainty. I went looking to know everything. There's a kind of courage in research. It looks exactly like fear. I found the condo on a map. I drove by it because my body moved before my brain did. It was one of those buildings developers try to make look expensive with glass railings, the kind where every balcony holds the same succulent because everyone has a Pinterest board. The late afternoon light made the windows reflective. I saw myself walking past, and for a second it felt like I was in 2 places at once, the person who still believed what she had been told, and the person who keeps walking anyway. Her car was outside. I didn't know the car was his until I recognized his gym bag in the back seat like a piece of him that wasn't supposed to be there. I didn't ring the buzzer. I stood on the opposite side of the street with take-out cups of coffee going dog cold in my hands and watched an elevator door open and a woman step out holding the hand of the little girl from the photos. The child wore a backpack with unicorns, the kind of thing I would have rolled my eyes at once and now nearly broke me. The woman had an expression I recognized, not smug, not even victorious, just tired in a way women get when they are keeping alive with one hand while making dinner with the other. They walked. The child tripped, then did that little hop that kids do to pretend they meant to. The woman bent, dusted off her knee, kissed the top of her head without thinking about it, muscle memory love. And for one ugly second I wanted to swap places with her, not because I wanted him more, but because she had a unit in a story I didn't. I didn't say anything that night. If you're judging me, know that I am too. I made salmon. I wiped the counter like it was a job. He told me he was meeting the guys for trivia the next day and kissed my temple absently, a husband move that felt like a trick of the light. I went to the bathroom and stared at my face while he talked to someone else in another room I paid for in a city where my name is on a lease. I placed my hands flat on the cool vanity to remind myself I was real. The next disclosure didn't happen until I had already decided 2 different plans. In one version, I'd leave. I'd pack a bag with the essentials: underwear, passport, the stainless travel mug that never leaks, and step into some other life like a clean shirt. In the second version, I'd stay but draw new borders. We talked to a counsellor who would charge more per hour than the rent I paid in my 20s and give us vocabulary words like a repair and a contract and a recommitment. The fact that I could imagine either life made me suspicious of both. Whichever I chose, I'd hate the person I could have been instead. He told me about the apartment 3 days after I'd seen it. He didn't confess. He reported. He used words like stability and safety, and I didn't want to burden you with the financial details because you would worry, which was true and exactly the problem. He had bought the place before our wedding to make sure they were secure and kept paying because what kind of man would he be if he didn't? He said the money wasn't the issue. He said the secrecy was to protect me from reacting like this. That last sentence was a knife he handed me hilt first. Who is the family then? Answer that out loud and you'll feel the ground tilt. He said he didn't love her. He said he loved me, that he chose me, that this was a terrible, complicated kindness he had committed to because people with small hands are involved. I believed him and I didn't. Both things sat in me like stones of different sizes. The problem with decent men who lie is that they don't look like liars when they tell the truth. They look like husbands who took out the trash without being asked and fell in love with your handwriting on a grocery list and remember to replace the TiVo when it runs out. I said yes to the support, to the visits, to the tax line that would never say what it was actually paying for. I said yes not because I was saintly, but because I didn't know how to say no without feeling like a cruel judge handing down a sentence to a child who didn't ask to be in a courtroom. I clung to the word honesty like a life ring, and he clung to it too, and between us the water kept being water. When people talk about forgiveness, they make it sound like a door. You open it or you don't. No one tells you it's more like a revolving door in the lobby of a building you work in, where you find yourself pushed around in circles you didn't volunteer for, stepping out onto the same marble floor over and over and pretending you meant to arrive there. I started to narrate my life differently. At work, when someone asked how my weekend was, I didn't say a park or brunch or a movie that tried too hard. I said quiet and meant I watched the clock. On Sunday nights, I cooked as if recipes could order a world that didn't want to be ordered. I made lists of things I could control: flossing, ordering the ficus, changing the sheets on Thursdays, buying the expensive face cream because if my skin could look right, maybe everything else would behave. I went on runs that felt like arguments with gravity. I told myself that staying was a kind of courage and then felt like a fool for having to talk myself into being brave. Then the thing happened that made everyone's opinion of me fold in on itself like origami they weren't sure how to finish. I met the child. I saw them at the farmer's market. Sat mourning. The pears were piled like green commas. He didn't see me because he was carrying the girl in that comfortable way you carry someone you've carried 100 times, a hip, a forearm, a laugh. The sight of his palm covering her small back undid me in a way I hadn't prepared for. She pointed at the tomatoes, the big heirlooms in colors that looked like mistakes. He set her down and she made the small sound of delight that filled my ears with what I thought was grief and was to my heart love. Not for him. For her. Something ancient lifted its head in me. I didn't introduce myself. I didn't dramatize it. When they walked past my aisle, I let them pass. I went home with parsley and a plastic tub of hummus in the knowledge that I was not the person I thought I was. I had wanted to hate them, both of them, like a clean burn. What I felt when I looked at her was different and worse, an egg-shaped like possibility. If you've never had your future taken hostage by a 5-year-old smile, I don't know how to explain the math. I went home and lay on the bedroom floor where the afternoon light makes a trapezoid and tried to bargain with every god I don't believe in. I told myself stories where we could all be okay, where I could have her on Wednesdays for piano lessons and show up to her school plate with flowers and sit in a row like an adult with durable feelings. I tried to make a home in a scenario where I didn't win or lose, where I simply kept going. I also typed my name into a blank document and added a different last name and stared at it for 30 minutes and wondered whether I could survive starting over. I looked at rentals with ugly carpet and a pool that everyone shares. I thought about holidays with the chair missing. I pictured myself telling my mother, listening to the silence between me and the Atlantic time zones where she lives, the intake of breath where she makes herself swallow her suggestions whole because she's learned to shut down and advice arrives like a verdict. The next part is not noble. I started tracking. Not obsessively, not like a movie, but in the small, efficient ways modern life lets you. Shared calendars. Transactions. The calendar entries got bigger. The money amounts grew consistent in a way that suggested planning. I became an auditor in my own marriage. I watched my husband's kindness like a line item. If you think that sentence sounds poisonous, know that I do too. I didn't recognize myself, the version of me that measured love in dollars and minutes. But also, didn't he start it? When I finally asked to meet the child, I framed it as transition. I told him I was ready now, willing to be part of the support structure. He was relieved in that open-mouthed way that makes you angry at relief. He said we would take it slow. He said he would talk to her mother. He was careful with my feelings, which made me want to break a glass and also hug him for remembering I had feelings to be careful with. We met at a park. Neutral ground, as if the grass could mediate. He did the introductions. I stayed away from words like step anything. We threw a ball. She lost interest quickly because she's a child and adults are tall and boring. She asked for the swings, and I pushed her while he answered a call, his eyes breaking away from us the way a man's eyes learn to break away when he's learned to keep 2 lives in one skull. Her hair smelled like watermelon shampoo. She laughed when she got high and kicked her sneakers forward with more faith than I have in any system. For 3 minutes, it was just me and a small person whose existence had been the earthquake of my life, and my body didn't register the politics. It did the mammal thing. It adjusted, calibrated, loved in a way that didn't ask for permission. After, at home, I sat on the edge of our bed where the duvet fold makes a white horizon and thought about how love makes fools of both saints and accountants. If I wanted to be part of her life, I had to become something else for myself, someone who could hold the paradox without puncturing it, who could say words like a half-sister out loud Sunday and not punish a girl for the size of her father's heart in the wrong direction. If I wanted to be part of my own life, I had to ask a question I'd been avoiding because I already suspected the answer. Was I the extra home he visited in the story he tells himself when he thinks about being a good man? The cruelty arrived in a small, beige envelope one Wednesday like junk mail again. Inside was not a bill, it was a report from the fertility clinic. My name on top, a graph that looked like a heart monitor for a hope, numbers lower than they should be for 34. If we wanted kids, we should start yesterday, the doctor had said 2 months ago with a casualness that only people with babies can clip onto their voices. Back then he nodded and said we should wait until something settled. I had pushed that word around on my tongue like a lozenge and tasted nothing. Here is the thing about trust. Once it cracks, everything that lands on it sounds like a lie when it might just be gravity. I don't know if he wanted to postpone because he needed room to be 2 fathers or because the world is always asking men to pick between future and present and they don't like to do it on a Tuesday. What I do know is that my body didn't want to be scheduled by secrets anymore. So I did a petty human thing. I went to the condo when I knew he'd be there because patterns are patterns even when people call them obligations. I didn't knock. I sat in my car with the engine off and watched the butter-colored light spill out through the blinds and tried to decide whether violence is sometimes just a word for action you've been avoiding. I saw him come out with trash. I saw him go back in with flowers that looked like he'd bought them at the corner store as a peace offering to no one in particular. I cried in a way that didn't bother messing with tissues. The next day, I moved $10,000 from our joint account into my own. It was half the savings I had contributed anyway, but it felt like theft. I booked a hotel room for one night downtown with sheets that crisp. I wrote a letter not righteous, but specific. I said I wasn't leaving at night, but I was leaving the version of us that didn't require truth to be ugly. I said if he wanted a family with me, he could not also have a second one like a hobby. I said I understood the child would always be there, and if he wanted me there, I would show up, but only if there was a single address for his promises. I said I wouldn't compete with a 5-year-old for affection because that would make me a monster, and I'm not. I said money has morals when people do. I said I loved him. I said I didn't trust him. Both sentences were true. He cried when he read it. I watched a grown man crumble, and it didn't feel like victory or punishment. It felt like trying to glue a plate back together knowing you'll never serve soup in it again. We talked until the dawn made the room look like a movie about forgiveness. He said he would sell the condo. He said he would put the money in an account with her name and mine as co-signers if I wanted not to control it, but to prove there would be no more apartments in the shadows. He said he would make a schedule that didn't require euphemisms. He said he would show up to therapy even when the therapist looked like me and that made him defensive. He said a lot. He meant it while he said it. I want to tell you that means it'll all happen. I don't know. I'm not a prophet. I've become a scientist of my own life, observe, record, repeat. And then, because the universe likes a punchline, my period was late. It could have been stress. It could have been bad salad. It could have been my body deciding to be hilarious. It was a thin pink line, then a darker one. I sat on the floor again, tired and unforgiving, the test in my hand like a ticket to a train station that might not exist. I laughed, the kind of laugh you hear in horror movies when the heroine realizes the house is also alive. I cried. I put my palm on my own stomach like I could apologize to something the size of a grain of rice for the mess it had landed in. I haven't told him yet. Before you judge me, understand that I'm telling you because I need to tell someone, somewhere, stranger, the internet, a camera, so that if I vanish back into my life and do the reasonable thing and smile and repair and recommit, there will be a record that at least once I said exactly where it hurt. I'm telling you because truth said out loud is the only weapon I have that doesn't become a boomerang. Do I keep this baby? That's the question that will split the room. Half of you will call me a martyr if I stay. Half will call me a fool. Some of you will ask how I could bring a child into a situation that is already a chessboard with missing pieces and a referee on lunch break. Some of you will say love is enough if two people work. Some will say love is a liar's favorite word. You will be right. The problem is you will be right from wherever you are, and I am here. Here looks like this, a kitchen where a laptop sits closed like a tongue bitten too late, a conduit that may or may not go on the market, a little girl who now knows my name and asked me last time if I liked dogs, and I said yes because I had to answer something, the bank account that is mine for the first time in a year, an appointment card from a fertility clinic I might not need anymore, a man in my bed who called toward me in his sleep last night like a child, and I kept my body still because I didn't know if closeness heals or just dulls your sense of smell for smoke. I am not brave. I am also not a coward. I am a woman who made salmon while the building next door burned because I didn't see the flames until someone posted them on the neighborhood app. I am a woman who can love two children who don't exist yet, one who does, and one who might. I am a woman who could tell you that the real family is the one with transparency, but what I feel right now is uglier and more honest. The real family is the one that tells the truth before someone has to find the folder. I don't know what I'll decide. I am letting the not knowing sit at my table like an unwelcome guest because every time I've rushed a decision to make people comfortable, I've regretted it. Maybe we'll sell the condo and the paperwork will be the kind of closure bureaucrats accept. Maybe he'll keep his promises in a way that makes new habits on his tongue. Maybe I'll be the person who can coexist with another mother without shriveling into a stereotype. Maybe I'll leave and teach myself how to sleep alone again and show up to parent-teacher conferences as a guest in my own history. Maybe I'll keep this baby and we'll become a family that looks like an argument people have in comment sections. Maybe I will end up being exactly the villain some of you think I am for considering any of this. Maybe the person you hate in my story is the mirror in your own house you try not to look into. I keep thinking about the little girl's laugh at the farmer's market, how it threw its head back without apology. I keep thinking about the first time I saw that folder and how ordinary it looked until it didn't. I keep thinking about how houses are the sum of what we do in them and not the names on the deed. I keep thinking that all of this would be simpler if feelings were math. They are not. They are wetter. They come in, they ruin the picnic, they make the sunset unbearable, they leave you with damp blankets and the smell of rain even when you want the smell of lemon cake. If you're listening, if you're typing furiously below, if you're on the edge of your couch calling me names, call me this and finished. Call me the kind of woman who wants to do the right thing but can't figure out which direction it is in the dark. Call me someone who is not afraid to say out loud that love is not a guarantee and that children deserve better than agendas disguised as generosity. Call me what you want, but when you say the word family, know that somewhere a woman is holding a plastic stick with two lines and wondering whether she is about to make the bravest or the most foolish choice of her life, and the truth is it might be both at once. Tomorrow morning, I'll sit him down at the table with the rosemary plant I brought in from the porch so it won't die in the heat. I'll put the test on the wood between us like the smallest bomb. I'll tell him I won't share a man with a secret address. I'll tell him we will write a new plan, one address for promises, one calendar that doesn't require code words. I'll tell him that if he wants to be a father twice, he has to learn to be a husband once completely, or release me to be a mother on my own. I don't know which sentence will be truer by the end of the day. I don't know if the condo will be listed by the weekend or if I'll be calling a realtor for myself. I don't know if I'll end up buying a crib or packing boxes. What I know is this, I won't be the woman who keeps a secrets calendar anymore. If you want a villain, make it the folder. If you want a hero, make it the child. If you need a moral, make it this, tell the truth before someone has to read your life like a bill that went to the wrong address. And if you need a vote on what I should do, you can keep it. For once, I'm not campaigning. I'm just standing in my own kitchen, breathing rosemary and dishwasher soap, steadying my hands, choosing a life that will ask me for mercy either way. Maybe that's the most honest thing I can say. Maybe honesty is the only thing I have left that feels like love.